Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today is so special, especially for everybody tuning in that's from my hometown of Richland Center, Wisconsin. We've got the hometown hero on Ivy Unleashed. Welcome, Bradie Ewing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat with you ladies today.
This is kind of surreal because reflecting on having Bradie here today, I'm so connected to his family because his dad was such a special part of my life. I could get emotional talking about him, Dave Ewing, because he was a father figure for me growing up. He was the assistant basketball coach, and a huge reason why I even tried out for the team. I was looking for mentorship. I was looking for someone to push me. I was looking for the intensity and the standards that Dave Ewing had, and he held us to this standard along with my other coach, Steve Board, who was a wonderful coach as well. And when I think about Bradie, I just think this guy was his dad and how lucky and blessed you were to have him as a dad. And I definitely want to touch on that. And that's my connection to Bradie. But we come from a very small town, and Bradie made his way to the NFL. And it's just there's the journey of getting there is really what we want to talk about. We want to talk about how that felt, where you came from and that road, that journey, your mental health along the way with roadblocks and things that got in the way and where you are now. And so we are so happy to sit down with you and hear your story. Brooke just met Bradie, and so she's fully in the NFL world.
I love it.
Her fiance is an NFL agent, and so we're going to talk some football today, and Brooke is pumped.
It's I'm home.
Give you something to talk about at dinner tonight.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
So, Bradie, we want to talk about, coming from a small town, making your way onto the Badger team, as a walk-on, because that is a story in itself, and how you managed to do that, getting to the NFL, having these unique standards for yourself, from where you came from to where you ended up. So can you kind of just walk us through, I know it's a big chunk of your life, but the standards you had to have for yourself in order to kind of get on that journey?
Yeah, it was always a dream of mine to be able to play at Wisconsin specifically, and had the chance to make that a reality. And I definitely was talented throughout my journey. No doubt God had blessed me with some talents and skills, but I feel like what really differentiated me was just the ability to do the things that took no skill and no talent. The little things getting in the playbook and studying the playbook, or, doing the extra reps in the weight room, helping other younger kids that might be coming into the program. Just those little things that you can control that just take time, really. And that helped differentiate me. So when I got the opportunity my freshman year as a walk-on, as a running back and special teams player, I was able to capitalize on that, build trust, and that really helped build confidence in me that I could play and compete at that level. But really, I think the standards comes from my dad, really, like you said, Andrea. And he always used to say to me, "You are who you are when nobody's looking." And maybe he said that to you through his coaching journey with you and the other girls that he helped coach throughout the years. But you are who you are when nobody's looking, and that can apply to all aspects of life, but and I always try to apply it to every aspect of life, but specifically in sports. It's okay, when the coach isn't watching, are you doing all of your reps and sets that you should be doing? Are you doing all the sprints? Are you touching the line and being disciplined with your approach and the consistency with what you do things? And it's not, yes, it's going to earn you the right to compete underneath the lights and on TV when everybody's watching, but you earn that right when nobody's watching.
I love that. And I think too, that confidence that you had, I think sometimes integrity of doing the things when no one's watching, it builds this confidence in you of I am who I say I am. I have the ability to try and be a walk-on athlete at this huge school. I mean, the Badgers football team is no joke, the highest standards you can have for football. And I'm thinking of that confidence, and when you are doing the extra reps and you see yourself compared to other people and what they're doing and their standards, I mean, it could have been really easy for you to just fall into the trap of kind of all right, this is high school football and we're kind of done here. So what was that like, that transition from high school to college, and knowing understand you have what it makes you capable for even trying to do that?
For me, it was through that transition, I didn't see making it to the Wisconsin as a finish line, if that makes sense. So I didn't see it as the end goal. It was just another step in the journey to continue to work, to continue to get better, and coupling that with doing the things, being who you are when nobody's watching. There was some scholarship guys that were in at the same position I was, and I feel like they took their foot off the gas pedal when they got to Wisconsin. And, for me, it was just, continuing forward, continuing to do what I was doing, and confidence continued to build through that.
Was the end goal the NFL for you?
It was. I can remember back when I think it was like 4th or 5th grade, I had a teacher, ask you to write an essay about what you want to do or what you want to be when you grow up. And I wrote, I wanted to be a professional athlete. And for a long time throughout my career, I thought I wanted to pursue basketball at the college level and really enjoyed that game, and transitioned to more football focused sophomore, junior year of high school. But that was something I aspired to as a young athlete, as a young student athlete. And she kind of crushed my dreams a little bit. She said, don't necessarily expect that to happen. You need to have a backup plan, which I get, but also something I learned from that is you need to be allowed to dream, and you need to be allowed to pursue those goals. And I guess that's what I've learned through my journey, is through the challenges, through, achieving goals that I wanted to achieve, is I try to give back and help others that might have those same goals or aspirations. And that's been a huge part of my purpose now as I've transitioned to coaching and being a parent and all that stuff.
Can you pinpoint a moment where you step into that identity of I can do this, and I'm completely capable of making this dream come true? Like, was there a point where you felt like I can do this and it's actually possible?
Yeah, it would probably be going into my senior year at Wisconsin. So even though I was competing at that level, I still had this self-talk in my head that I, necessarily wasn't good enough, or I had a lot more to do. And I think the coaches try to keep you in that mindset just to keep you striving and working, which is totally fine. But after junior year, we did postseason meetings with our position coaches and had a conversation with the running back position coach at the time. And he said they're getting a lot of interest from NFL scouts, and even interest in whether I was planning to leave school early and come out that year. And that wasn't ever in the plans in my mind. But that was really the first moment where I had started one year, have that conversation with the running back coach. And then it really made it a reality for that next year and helped set some goals that I had personally outside of the team focused goals and contributing to help win games and, lead the team and all of that, to then put myself in a position to go try to pursue and chase that dream. Included putting more weight on, working on specific parts of my game, and kind of started that journey and kind of sparked in me that was a reality. Much like when I was in high school, getting recruited to Wisconsin, you don't really know if you can survive at that level or compete at that level until you get there, and your confidence can slowly start to build.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that way in college, where it was like or in high school, like acing all my tests and feeling so smart and feeling like top of my class. Right. And then I get to college, and then I'm in these classes and I'm like, are they speaking English? Like, what? It's just, it like affects your confidence so much. So I'm sure you had full ride scholarship offers all over the place, probably for basketball, probably for football, probably for D1 schools all over the place. Did you get a scholarship to go to Madison?
I didn't. I wish I had scholarship offers to go all over the place. I had one full ride scholarship offer from the University of North Dakota to play linebacker, and had some Division II opportunities for football and basketball, but chose to walk on to Wisconsin. And the deal was with Coach Bielema at the time was if I paid my schooling for 2 years, they would give me a scholarship for the last 3 years, because at the time there was some rule where a scholarship didn't count against the initial class that you were a part of if you didn't have that scholarship the first 2 years. So that was the intention for me to redshirt, to walk on for a couple years, be a part of the team, and then get that scholarship. Ended up playing true freshman year and then still getting that scholarship going into my junior year. And so that definitely left a chip on my shoulder too. Fortunately, my parents were helpful and had some high school scholarships to bridge the gap financially. But that was always left a chip on my shoulder that I wanted to be that scholarship guy and kind of have that stamp of approval. But again, it didn't, if anything, it just motivated me to try to prove my worth and I could help the team win at the end of the day.
So you're a Badger.
Yep.
You're working hard. And then what Andrea said earlier, then you go to the NFL and you're the bottom dog. You go from the high to the low. What was that like, that experience on your mental health, the self-talk? Walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like you're reliving that whole high school to college transition again. You're going into college and you're a 17, 18-year-old young man and you're playing against some 22, 23-year-old folks. And, you do that same transition into the NFL. So it's, again, you're trying to feel it out, feel out the situation, where you fit in, what's your role going to be on the team. And then I think for me, the biggest challenge was just, I had that dream since I was 4th, 5th grade, probably earlier than that. It's like, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to the best ability I can to enjoy the moment. Absolutely. But also help and support, Rachel, my wife, and our family, and kind of set that up. So I think that put a lot of undue pressure on myself through that transition. And then you couple that with that first preseason game in Atlanta. I ended up tearing my ACL something like 6 or 7 plays into the game. And so you compound, the mental side of the game and just the pressure I was putting on myself with an injury. And, I ended up being on injured reserve that whole year. And so again, all of those thoughts go through your mind is, okay, what can I control to put myself in a position to get out there and compete again? And kind of started that road rebuilding throughout that process. But there's a lot of highs and lows through that, from obviously physically, rehabbing and trying to get your body back to compete at that level after surgery. And then, the mental side of the game, from trusting that knee again to do what you needed to do out on the field. And you build that confidence through rehab, but also then probably most importantly, just mentally, getting over the fact that, you could get injured again, or, you might mess that knee up again, or maybe I'll never play, NFL football or football in general again. You just don't know through that process. So it was definitely challenging, but also some of the most rewarding times that I had throughout my NFL career, as I went through injury in the rehab process, injury in the rehab process, injury in the rehab process, 3 years in a row.
Wow. That's a lot. I mean, I see, so my fiance, he negotiates contracts, and I see what they put in there of, okay, if you get injured, then you get this much, or, you have to work towards so many games to earn this bonus. And I'm like, this is so much pressure. And then I'm watching these guys on the TV and they get injured, and it's, I feel so bad for them. Like, I know what's on the line. So how did you deal with that pressure?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I think for me, I try to stay rooted in what I'm all about, and that's my faith in Jesus and believing in him as my personal savior. So knowing that the ups and downs are going to come, and I'd already had that foundation through college, but I think it was really tested and through the trials of injury in the NFL, just wondering, asking questions like, why me? You worked so long for this opportunity, and then to get injured in the first game and, have to feel like you go back to square one and just start over. That was huge for me. And I know later we'll probably talk about a verse, but my life verse is James 1:2-4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds, because those trials and the testing will produce maturing, so that you're not lacking anything. I didn't get that 100% perfect there, but yeah, I mean, that was huge to me. So my faith was foundational. And then, you look at the different spheres of your life. My wife, Rachel, who I started dating in high school, We've now been married 13 years. She was with me, just a huge supporter, obviously my family, my siblings, and my friend circle, my teammates. There's so many different levels that supported me through the ups and downs of the mental challenges dealing with this adversity. And really, in the big picture of things, it felt like it was the whole world, but it really, in the grand scheme of things, it was very minor, right? I mean, there's so many different challenges that could have come up from a family or a health perspective that would be much bigger than this. So just trying to keep perspective through faith and family.
I love that you mentioned, though, that trust, right? That trust in your faith, the community aspect, all these things that keep you grounded as you're making these big transitions to college football and then the NFL. I'm thinking about like some mindset shifts. So you have the Bible verse that you rely on. What's one mindset shift to protect your mental health that you used to practice that really helped you, or something you still practice today?
Yeah, for me, I would say I use this in football, but also just in life now. It's finding the calm before the storm. And actually, Andrea, I saw on your, I think, Instagram today, where you had talked about getting out and getting run and getting active before your kids get up. And that is so huge for me. And getting up, being the first one up in the house, going through my routine of getting into the Bible, heating my knees, stretching my hip flexors, eating my breakfast, and just having that downtime of calm to set the stage for the day on what I want to accomplish and how I want to do it. And that was the same thing in football. People always would ask me like, "Oh, what do you listen to get pumped up before the game or get excited for the game?" And typically it was like the slowest country song that you could ever think of. It just brought me some mellowness and calmness that, helped me just stay focused on what I was trying to accomplish and keep my nerves down, I guess.
I think that's something that people admire so much about you, Bradie, because when when you're in Richland Center and Brady's there, like everybody's trying to talk to him or whatever, and like he's so personable where like you're just very centered and grounded. And again, like Brooke said, it's your community, right? It's your family, like you talk about. It's Rachel, it's your faith, it's you're just such a genuine person that does take the time to stay centered, to stay grounded, because this totally could have gotten in your head and made you feel like you were better than everybody else, or you were, you'd treat people differently, but you don't. Like you're very kind and focused and present with people when you're around them. And I think that speaks to your success no matter what you're going to be doing. Now you're speaking on stages and you are inspiring young people, and you're in schools and talking to them about your life lessons and kind of how you carry yourself. And I love it. And I think you're such a great example for whatever it is you decide to do in life. You're shifting. It's different seasons. You're in a fatherhood chapter now, that knowing yourself, grounding yourself, having your, if it's your faith, if it's your family, if it's whatever combination that works for you, it's so important so that when the storm does come, you're the calm of the storm. You're the calm before the storm. You're focusing on that. So I love that you said that, because I think it's so important no matter what you have going on that you stay grounded and centered in that. So let's talk about fatherhood. You have 4 kids.
Yeah, you did a much better job summarizing that than I did. That was great. But yeah, we have 4 boys, and they bring the energy, they bring the passion, and keep Rachel and I on our toes with activities and ideas, and actually homeschooled right now. And Rachel's leading the charge there and just does a fantastic job. And the boys are enjoying it. We're kind of taking it year by year, but really enjoying that. So they get their schoolwork done. We have some land in Richland Center. They're out running around and, catching frogs, catching butterflies, sledding, whatever time of year it is, because we're in Wisconsin. So, I think you hit the nail on the head. When I chat with schools, it's about having a purpose, having that foundation that you can lean back on. And I think as a high schooler, I work a lot with that age kids or middle school, they don't really think about that. They think about, what's next on their to-do list, or what's the next sport activity or school activity that they need to get done. And I just challenge them and do some activities to help them think about what truly motivates you and what gives you purpose and that motivation and that burn within you to, continue to chase your goals and your dreams. That's definitely a big part of what I talk about.
Yeah.
So from
love
fourth,
that.
fifth grade, you had this dream of being in the NFL, and then you reach it. And then what? I think we all talk about chasing and working so hard to achieve the dream. And then what happens when the dream is achieved?
I feel like I achieved the dream, but I also feel like I didn't in a way, because I made it there. I played in some games. I met some amazing people. But you level up those dreams and those goals as you go too. So it's like, okay, I made it. Now I want to be a starter. Now I want to be, make it to my second contract or, whatever it may be. So definitely so thankful and appreciative for the opportunities I had and the people I met, from coaches to players to, neighbors in the apartment complexes we lived in. Just amazing. But also, I feel like I challenged myself enough mentally to think about, okay, what's next, and kind of revisiting those dreams. And the fact that I had injury after injury kept me striving to just, try to make a squad, make it through a season. And so that didn't mean I didn't have challenges transitioning away from the game, because that was definitely difficult for me as well as I gave it up. But yeah, I think it's constantly, whether it's football or not, it's constantly evolving those goals and just doing some self-reflection to think through, okay, I've reached this goal or I've checked this box. Now what's next? And not necessarily a take the foot off the gas pedal type moment.
Was it your decision to be done with the NFL, or was it like because of injuries, it was just done? Like, what was that process like of it actually ending, and how did you mentally move on to like your next job?
Yeah, so it was my decision, and I kind of knew it was coming. So I mentioned my first year in the NFL with Atlanta. I tore my ACL and had surgery that year, went on injured reserve, battled back going into that second year, and ended up early in the regular season, catching a pass, trying to stiff arm a guy and dislocating my shoulder again that I had surgery on in college. And so I had to have surgery again there, get that fixed up. So I went on injured reserve again. Atlanta released me. I went to Jacksonville. And honestly, that transition was great, because I feel like I mentioned earlier, I was putting a lot of mental pressure on myself, and I had finally come to the realization that it's like, hey, this isn't going to last long for me. The NFL isn't. I'm just going to truly enjoy the moment and just do everything I can and leave everything else in God's hands. And I went into that third year of the NFL, got hurt again in the, I think, second or third preseason game against the Chicago Bears in Chicago, and messed my wrist up and needed surgery on that again. And so at that time, I kind of knew, like, okay, I can't compete at this level, this really high level of football anymore with staying healthy. It's time for me to start thinking about what's next. And luckily I went on injured reserve and rehabbed at the team facility. Rachel and I stayed in Jacksonville, had our first son, Bennett, at that time. And it was just a blessing of a time to be on injured reserve, but also have a bunch of home time to help, raise Bennett as he was just a little guy. So again, silver linings that come from these situations. There's tons of them. Yeah, as I had that injury, I just kind of knew the writing was on the wall. So I stayed with the team, rehabbed, tried to get back to par, and then they released me that spring when I was cleared. And I think it was a day or two later, I just decided to officially hang it up. And there were some other teams that were reaching out to my agent at the time, and I just made the decision that it was time to figure out what the next chapter was. And I had been working on that a little bit with the University of Wisconsin and the strength staff there.
It sounds like mentally you prepared yourself for that transition, because I can only imagine for years and decades your identity is in being a football player. And then you're transitioning into this new identity. That was your purpose. So how did you find a new purpose post out of the NFL?
Yeah. And the identity thing was real for me. When Andrew, you mentioned when you go back to Richland Center, you go back to Madison, that's what people want to talk about. Mm-hmm. Oh, it looks like you put weight on. Like, how's that going? What's your nutrition like? How's football going? What stage are you in training? And it's to transition away from that. And then every conversation is, like, what happened? What kind of injuries did you face? And I felt like not that I saw value necessarily in what the conversation I was having with people around football, but it was just a center point of my life for so long, Brooke, like you said, where literally every waking moment was typically doing something with football. If I wasn't, especially in the NFL, whether it was practice in the facility, training, the way I was eating, the way I, in a hyperbaric chamber and cryotherapy, just trying to find every little edge I could to stay healthy. And to then all of a sudden have that, willfully for myself taken away from me. It was nice that after I got done playing, I went and worked at the University of Wisconsin football team as an assistant strength coach for a year. And that was a really nice transition for me to still be around the game and that team atmosphere, but start to transition to quote unquote the real world and kind of master that identity of just being a Christ follower, being a dad, being a husband, versus necessarily thinking of myself as a football player first.
Yeah, it's like your identity is who you are, not what you do. And I think, again, that's like brings us back to being centered in that foundation of who I am as a person versus what the career is, what the goal is, what the activities are. And that's tricky because you can't really control what people want to talk to you about, right? Like, I'm sure it still happens. Because how long have you been out of the NFL now?
Oh man, you're dating me now. So I think last year was about 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yep.
Wild. And so you're back where you're from, like you're in the Richland Center area. Your wife, shout out Rachel's homeschooling. What an angel.
What inspired you to do that? I'm so curious when it comes to homeschooling.
We moved back to Madison from Jacksonville to be an assistant strength coach at Wisconsin. And I did that for a year and then transitioned to a different career. So we were living in Madison and we had, we didn't really think at that time we wanted to get back to Richland Center, but as we got settled in and we were close to family, but still a little bit distant and, spent more time in Richland Center, it just felt called to get back here. So around that time, our kids were transitioning into school. And so we had just decided to homeschool at that time and through the transition to help. And it's something that she started to enjoy. The kids now, as they've gotten older, can actually verbalize that they enjoy it. And so we've kind of stuck with it.
That's awesome.
I'm curious with fatherhood, I want to circle back to Dave because he's like my hometown hero of like, just when I think back to high school and I think back to like lessons I learned and why I enjoyed school so much. Like he's such a huge part of it because I learned so much about who I am as a person. Even one time I wasn't a starter. I wrote an essay on how to ride the pine because I was really good at it.
Ride the pine,
like sit the bench.
Oh,
I was like the seventh man. But I still like, I always worked so hard. I was like super hard worker on the team and really, encouraging and energetic, right? Like my vibe.
Can't imagine.
But I remember one time because they were really focused on the starters, and we went to state both times I was on the team. I wasn't being paid attention to. I like threw the ball away twice in practice, and his dad didn't notice, and the head coach didn't notice, and so everybody went to get water, and I said to his dad and to Coach Board, I said, I know I'm not a starter, but I just threw the ball away twice and neither of you yelled at me. And I need you to pay attention to me too. Like I matter on this team. I might have to come into the game, which I did in state. And I went and got water and I came back and he was like, listen to me. I am so happy that you pointed that out. Like he even took constructive. He was like, you do matter. And it is on me that I didn't notice that. And like, it was just I felt like I could talk to him and he like held himself to such a standard and it helped me set myself to standards. And so I'm curious with that. And your mom is so wonderful. Shout out to Andrea as well. I'm curious about you as a father and, the lessons you kind of took from them, whether it's in sports or in your home life, kind of how that's translating into your journey as a father and as a husband.
Yeah, my parents were amazing. I mean, what you saw as a coach, seeing that as a father figure day in and day out, I think my dad truly led by an example for us and worked so hard to give us the opportunities that we did. Sports specifically, I didn't have to work. I didn't work until I think my junior year in high school in the summers. And that was, they were taking me to camps and just giving us opportunities to pursue our passions. And so that's something Rachel and I definitely try to do too, is give our kids the opportunities that they want, and try to give them a framework of, treating people the way you want them to be treated. And that starts in the house with our family, and me trying to model that as best that I can. Um, Going back to what I mentioned earlier, you are who you are when nobody's looking, like that quote sticks with me day in and day out, to be just integrity, be who you are and who you want to be. And so that's something we definitely try to live out to our boys. We talk to them, we're very intentional about it, but also just trying to display it on a day in and day out basis, so that I think that's more powerful than some of the words that we can say to our kids at times, or even as a coach, what we can say to our players. I think just the way we live it out and the way we can model those things is huge.
And you're also talking to students, so kids that aren't your own. What is your mission and hope with them, the legacy you want to leave behind in this new work?
I think that is, other than the family and my faith and that foundation we've talked about, that's super rewarding to me and fulfilling. I think of that as my new purpose. I can take some of the things that I learned from my football days and growing up, and use those stories and those experiences to help others deal with adversity better, and start thinking about their purpose, and thinking about the things that they can control, and how to set goals and how to go accomplish them, and the habits that they need to have. I can be a lens into that, and then also have experiences with some of the adversity I face, where I can walk alongside a high school senior that just tore her ACL, and isn't able to play the last couple sports seasons that she wanted to play and had worked so hard for. So I can walk alongside her because I've lived that. And that's a huge blessing to me. It helps me continue to develop, just like being a parent. It helps you learn, grow, exposes things that, you're not great at and you have to work on. And so, yeah, it's just been a blessing to transition to how can I use what I've experienced to help others be the best that they can be in whatever aspect they're chasing. Might be school, might be sports, might be a career.
Yeah, it's so valuable. And I think, I wish we had more of that when I was younger. Actually, I think your dad did come and speak to us, because we were like, this guy should come in and give us a speech. But it's like the mindset, right? Because you're going through the motions in school, you're sitting all day, and not everybody's in a sport or in a club or can afford to be in these things, right? And so to have people coming in and speaking to you and giving you some of their light and inspiration and stories, it's so powerful. So if anybody wants to find you, to have you come to their school, or follow you along your journey, where can they find you or follow you?
You're testing me here. Instagram is Bradie.Ewing, BRADIE.EWING. And so I'm kind of newer to the Instagram game, and having fun with that. And then Twitter is BEWING34, or X, I guess it's called now.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
On X, it's BEwing34. And then, more of the business side would be LinkedIn, and on there as well. But working on a website, working on a few other things to build it out. But it's been just amazing to get out and chat with kids and have an impact on them. So getting good feedback has been awesome.
Love that.
So exciting. Well, we wrap up every show with the same 3 segments. First segment is your 3 gold stars. So 3 top takeaways you want to leave our audience with today.
Yeah, I think this kind of follows the framework of what I like to talk to schools about. It's explore your passions and your purpose. Think about what motivates you deeper than just some of the external motivations of getting a good grade, or getting your driver's license, or being an all-conference athlete. Like, dig deeper than that and do the work and the reflection to think about what truly motivates you day in and day out. Second, I would say master your process. Like, what are the things that you can control, the little habits you can do, whether that is your morning routine or things that can just differentiate you from other people outside of what you've been innately blessed with. And then lastly would be just do hard things. Find things that are hard, that you maybe are fearful of doing, but take that risk, take the chance, and likely you're going to fail. Maybe you'll quote unquote succeed, but learn from it, grow from it, and just have that growth mindset and use it as an opportunity to learn, evolve, and continue to do things a little bit differently to chase those passions.
I love that. I love especially the last one because I feel like today everything's getting so much more convenient and easier and accessible. And it is so important to find those ways to grow yourself, to do the harder thing. Like, I'm about to go camping and it's going to be hard. It's going to be like,
Sounds terrible.
It just like helps you appreciate the ease of life another day, like even little things. But I think kids nowadays need reminders of that you need the harder things because that's what creates like how you're proud of yourself and, and the growth.
Yeah,
So.
that was speaking for me, honestly. I never, speaking in some of these workshops and mentoring that I've been doing, I never thought that's something I would do, but it's something that people kept asking me about if I would do it. And it's like, okay, I'm going to take this leap. And then all of a sudden, much like my transition to Wisconsin or the NFL, your confidence starts to grow. And you just continue to learn and figure out your path to ultimately help people. It's not about me. And I use my stories as an example, but just trying to help people be the best that they can be.
Love that. All right. Up next, Unleashing Ivy. I want to talk about the highlights because I keep thinking of like the picture of you on the phone, getting the call that you're going to be in the NFL. Or I think of you in, the Falcons locker room, like putting on your jersey, like those moments. Like, can you talk us through just those highlights and how that felt? And is that the highlight of the journey, or is there something else when you think of the NFL journey that's the highlight?
Oh man, there's a lot of them. There's, one that jumps out to me like on the field would be when we beat Ohio State when they were number 1 and they came to Camp Randall. Would have been 2011, I believe, or 2010. Came out, we returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown right at the beginning of the game. I was on that unit, and just a huge memory as far as people, fans stormed the field. My parents were down there, my family was down there, and just enjoying that with our teammates. So moments like that. There's, like you mentioned, the moment when I got the draft call in my parents' living room and families around, and just celebrating and recognizing how special that moment is. But then there's also the other side of the spectrum too, where, I remember silly things like we used to ride mopeds around Madison, and in the winter, you would have workouts typically 6 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday were more lift and speed focused. And then Wednesday and Saturday were more endurance-based team competitive type activities. And those were really early in the morning for a college kid anyway, typically 5:30 or 6. And so I remember leaving Whitty in Madison, the dorm, and riding our moped in the winter, like 5 inches of fresh snow, hadn't been plowed. Guys got their ski goggles on. We're riding down, Regent Street or these different streets in Madison with our feet down so that we stabilize ourselves. Those are great memories too, where it's just, you're in the moment. They're not necessarily football specific, but you just remember those moments, the people that were there with you, and kind of just the process of trying to reach those goals. Because the reality of it is, with college football, you have 13 games a year. And so if that's your only goal, is to get out there on the field, like, it is a long off season. You have spring ball, you have winter training, you have summer training, you have fall camp, and there's so much, time in the training room, weight room, that you just have to prepare for. And I feel like I did an okay job at trying to enjoy the moments through that journey versus just running out of the tunnel on Saturday or on Sunday.
There is a picture of Bradie. We're both Gophers. There's a picture of Bradie with the axe. It's like an iconic picture. It's such a good picture. And I was mad about it, in the moment, because obviously I wanted us to win. But I was really happy for you. But the joy on your face.
Now a little bit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. We are keeping the axe, man.
Yeah, we are.
That was the thing at Wisconsin. They typically didn't let underclassmen hold the axe. So that was my senior year at what is the stadium called? TCF Bank Stadium or
Yeah.
something
You got it.
time. And yeah, in Minnesota. And it was just the first time I had really held the axe throughout my whole career, even though we had it every year. And yeah, just a special moment as a senior. But yeah, I don't know who captured that picture. That's one of my
That's a good one.
Yeah, and especially with social media today, you have instant access to all of these highlights, the photos, the videos. For a little kid dreaming of going to the NFL, it looks amazing, but it's important to hear all of the work and the grit that it takes, right, behind the scenes. So for someone who wants to go to the NFL or just has a dream that they're pursuing, what advice would you give them?
I mean, it's truly breaking down that dream. Probably sounds super cliche, but breaking down that dream into the moment as much as you can. And I wasn't super intentional about this, but through some things I learned, it just gives you perspective. It's in order to if you're in college, in order to get noticed by scouts, you got to put good film out there. Okay, how do I put good film or good tape out there? I got to, be in the weight room. I got to work on XYZ in practice. So breaking all of these things down to basically what can I do today that's going to actually make an impact on that long term. I was talking with my son Bennett about this the other day. And he, had these goals and aspirations he wants to hit as a high schooler. It's like, okay, what can we actually work on today? Or how many days a week do you want to work on your game? What do you want to work on the basketball court? So that would be my challenge to folks, is break it down to the habits, the things you can do today, but also just have fun, whatever those goals are and those passions are, because challenges are going to come, and just enjoy the ride and the process that it takes to learn and just get better.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And it's like a lot of it is just the basics. It really is. It's not this glorious, glamorous thing. It's like showing up and working really hard. It's like getting the fundamentals down, and I love that you talk about when no one's looking, because that's what makes the difference of a NFL player. Like, they put in the time when no one's paying attention. I have a neighbor who I always tell him he's going to go into the NBA. He is practicing basketball constantly. It's like the sun isn't even out anymore. It's 10 p.m. and he's still shooting hoops, and it matters. It's so important. So yeah. I love that advice. All right. Last question, Bradie. If you could go back and tell younger Bradie something, what age would you go back to, and what would you tell him?
Oh man. I would probably go back to early in my high school career, as I started to really put the gas pedal down of pursuing college athletics, and just tell myself to slow down a little bit, enjoy high school and where you're at today, and just the moments you have with your teammates, your friends, your family, because even having experienced and lived out those dreams and goals at college and in the NFL, those were still some of my best sports memories too, playing alongside your friends that you grew up with in front of the community. And, you didn't have some of those outside pressures that were weighing on you of, performance or, uplifting your contract in the NFL and things like that. So just from a sports perspective, that's what I would say, is just enjoy the moment and, continue to work hard in everything you do, but just be where your feet are at.
I love that. Oh, that's great. Such great advice. I'm so glad that you're out there and that you are speaking, that you are tapping into this, because you do have a story and you do have hardships. You have a lot of wonderful blessings in your life. You always have, with the family that you have. I love all of them, and a great friend group, and, all of that. But I think it's so important if you can tangibly put it into words the way that you are. It's so powerful. It's going to change so many kids' lives. And I'm just happy that you're tapping into this new skill and working on it, and excited to see where it takes you. And we're just so grateful to sit down with you, and that you shared your time with us. That's so precious. And I am excited for our community to have access to you too, because a lot of moms are listening that are going to want you in their schools for their kids. And so thank you so much for being here and sharing your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Love what you ladies are doing too, and the community that you support. It's pretty cool. I tune in myself, so
we're honored. We leave our listeners, as you know, with a piece of gold, a quote that speaks to you. Would you please send us off with your quote?
Yeah, mentioned it earlier, but James 1, 2 through 4, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of any kinds, because you know that those trials will produce perseverance, and let perseverance finish its work so that you are mature, complete, not lacking anything.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.
Nice job.
That was awesome.
Thank you.